I'm gonna say hello, JBR.
Hey Leonie. Hey everybody.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
Hi there.
So I know a few of you guys when I mentioned JBR, because I always, plug what's coming up in the week. I've seen enthusiastic nodding from some people, so clearly you are a person that's known already.
Either that or you're all nodding dogs in the back of a car.
Oh, that, yeah. No, because obviously the title of the talk is how to get an agent, because I know that you have done a chat about this at Surviving Actors before, and you're great when it comes to kind of giving actors advice. But I think we can just make it like a pretty open sort of industry chat as well, just talking about what's going on at the moment, with the whole crisis, and just kind of like, just have a bit of a chat, especially if it's a lovely small group like this. I guess we don't need to do the whole put your questions in the chat function and I'll read them out. I guess let's just you do your thing, Jay, until you feel like you want to open it up, and then we can just unmute ourselves and just talk. How does that sound?
Cool, good.
Brilliant.
Sounds
Okay.
fine. Hi everyone. Am I doing my thing now? Only she's muted herself. Oh, you're all on mute as well. Oh, cool. Interesting. I like that. It's the first time I think I've ever been in a room of actors where they've all been on mute. Hey everybody, how you all doing? Thumbs up if it's going well, thumbs down if it's not going well, that if you're just still freaking out, because I think we all are. My name is Jay, or JBR. I'm non-binary. My pronouns are he, him. And I have, despite my incredibly youthful looks, I've been in the industry for more than 35 years. I started when I was 11, and I'm hurtling towards 50 at an alarming rate. I actually had to phone my mother the other day and just check my date of birth, because I had a panic attack, just going, I cannot be nearly 50. It's just not possible. I started when I was 11 in the West End at the London Coliseum, and I've basically done a lot of different things in the industry. I've performed, I've written, I've directed, I've produced, as we all do. Just after I turned 40, I decided that I'd had enough of earning £50 a week, sleeping on air mattresses, and just the lack of respect, and just my mental health was just not in a great place at that point. And I wanted something different from my life. And I kind of fell into agenting, and I love it. And I spent 5 years, exactly 5 years, 1st of May, 5 years ago. Maths is not my strong point. An agent shouldn't admit that they're not good at maths, but I'm not. And so I left 5 years to the day after I started. And I started at a very small agency at the time, Simon & Howe. There were only 3 of us in a very small room in Hoxton. And I worked my way up from assistant associate agent to running the company as chief executive officer and chief operations officer. And over 5 years oversaw the expansion of Simon & Howe from an agency of just the 3 of us to an agency of, I think currently, I'm not like au fait with how many there are there now, but when I left, I think there were 10 agents and 3 assistants and a huge office in Shoreditch. And at that point, I'd kind of had enough of that life. I thought it was what I wanted. I thought that I wanted to be running a huge agency, but actually what happened was I had moved very far away from knowing who my clients were. I'd gone from a list of 50, 60 at my top end, to handling a personal list of 110, and also overseeing another 10 agents who all had enormous lists of about 60 to 100, and running a big agency. And it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to get back to working one-on-one with clients, and developing and nurturing. And I think that is one of the things that I learned about agenting in my time, that the bigger the agency, the less career development there is. I used to get very upset when I'd take a client to a certain level in their career and they would leave and go to CAM or Hamilton Hodel or Independent. It was great for me because it's really good for an agent to kind of have somebody that is then moving up to those huge agencies. But I didn't really understand why they were doing that. And then having run a very big agency, I realized that those agencies are very interested in people with profile who already have a CV that they can just take on to another level. There's not much nurturing, there's not much development, and there's not much one-on-one time in those big agencies. You spend more time talking to your agent's assistant. And I was well aware that my clients were spending more time talking to my assistant than they were talking to me because I was too busy. And so I left to set up my own company, JBR Creative Management, for two reasons. One, I wanted a small list. I wanted to like have some time in the evening that was for me, when my phone wasn't constantly going with other agents or other problems or other things. I wanted a small list of people who I knew. I wanted to know their names, I wanted to know their families, I wanted to know about their dogs, I wanted to know about their ambitions, I wanted to work one-on-one with people again. And the other reason that I left to set up my own company was because I see a future for actors where they are not just acting, where they are working in all fields, where they are directing, whether they are producing, whether video editing, creating work. So I call my clients multi-platform creatives because they work across all fields and in lots of different areas. And that's, for me, that's exciting and interesting because one day I'm dealing with negotiating the rights for an adaptation of a book that a client is working on, and I'm talking to the Coast in America and negotiating rights. And the next minute I'm, dealing with an Equity Fringe show. I love that versatility, and I love watching, and I think Leonie will back me up on this. You'd better, by the way. I like encouraging my clients to develop, to not just see themselves as working in one field and cutting everything else off. I like to encourage them to go where the universe is taking them. And in Leonie's case, she did a lot of voiceover work. Having come to me as a musical theatre performer, I think you're quite far away from seeing yourself now as just a musical theatre performer. I think you really exemplify what I like to work on, which is seeing yourself as a multi-platform creative who works in a number of fields. And that for me is exciting, to see somebody like Leonie develop and grow and change and expand her horizons and move away from her ambition of just one particular thing into expanding and developing as an entirely rounded creative individual. It's really exciting for me to work with people like Leonie who get that and who want to work in that form. So that's me, that's what I do. I feel like I'm very dark, so I might just adjust this lamp. Now I feel like I'm very orange and I have a bright light shining in my face, so I might just adjust it back again. And yeah, let's take some questions. I talk a lot, so we might as well get through as many questions as we can, and hopefully I will cover as many things as I can. And yeah, the title of this, How to Get an Agent, is a great title because it's the title of my book, which is coming out next year, so you can buy that.
That's exciting. Didn't know you were writing a book.
Oh, written. The book's written. It's just now in editing and drafting and proofreading stage now.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because last week we had Iona McLean give a talk on what a manager does as opposed to an agent, and why ideally she sees that actors should have both. And hearing you talk about your approach as an agent, it is quite similar to actually what she was saying a manager would do. So would you, because obviously you also named your company JBR Creative Management, so would you see yourself sort of as a hybrid, or do you still...
Yeah, I don't see myself as a talent agent, and I tend to correct people when they call me a talent agent, and I say I'm not. I'm a creative manager, and I work with creatives. I don't work with actors. I don't think I have any pure actors on my books other than like 19-year-old brand new graduates who are convinced they're going to be Elphaba next year. I tend to work with people who already see themselves as being, or at least are interested in working across the board. I do think that part of it is based on having friends who are Hollywood actors or American actors and seeing the agent and manager relationship that they have. But also, as Leonie will know, I'm very fair on money, and I'm very much about making sure that actors are earning as much of their own money as they can. And the idea of us adopting the American system and having managers and agents over here, and paying both of them 10% or 15% or whatever percent it is, that's an awful lot of money that's coming out of your pocket. And believe me, I know how much you earn. So I kind of see myself as combining the two roles. My role isn't, I've never wanted to just be somebody that's just taking my percentage and just continually shoving my clients out onto jobs and booking them into things. I always want to kind of think about, where does the client want to go? What do they want to do next? And actually, one of the ways that I kind of manage that is by always taking the client back to where they started from, to what it was that attracted them to coming into this industry in the first place. I call it the fall in love moment. What was it that made you fall in love with this industry, with wanting to be part of it? And I think if you can base your work around that fall in love moment, you'll be happier. And it's different for everybody. Some people do fall in love with the applause. Some people fall in love with being laughed at. Some people say that it was the first time they felt seen or heard. Some people talk about being part of a community for the first time. It's very different for everybody. But I think if you're looking at your career going forward and always linking it back to that first moment and thinking, is this going to fulfill me in that way? You'll have a happier, more mentally balanced career, I think, if you're constantly, and if you know that it's not, if you know that, okay, well, this one I'm doing just for the money and it's not going to fulfill me and it's not going to make me feel that great, but it is going to get me £30,000, so I'll do it, and a couple of days out of my life, as opposed to the jobs that you do because you love them and because you know it's going to make your heart sing. And we all have those jobs that we do for £50 a week because we know we're going to have a wonderful time on them. And then we have the jobs that we do for 30 grand and we know we're going to have the worst time in the world, but it's going to move us on in some way, or pay the rent. I mean, that's a big thing for actors. You've got to be able to make rent, and sometimes you have to put your principles aside to do that, I'm afraid.
So obviously this year is a bit difficult, particularly for graduates.
Is it? Really? Why?
I mean, I have noticed. I mean, to be fair, I've actually been loving this, right?
Well, you'll be in demand, won't you? You have a home studio, don't you?
Yeah. I've probably worked more than ever before, for sure. But like, obviously, the tragedy of losing people, etc., set aside, I've quite actually enjoyed the whole lockdown experience because it's been just a bit of slowing down and breathing and kind of back to basics. But what I was gonna say is, for like graduates who graduated this year, who didn't get a showcase, who didn't get agent panels, etc. I know that there were some casting directors and agents who sort of did a call out at the beginning of lockdown, who was saying, 2020 grads, get in touch with me because we know that it's been difficult. But what would you say for somebody who hasn't been able to find representation or to kind of get that exposure that they would have needed at the end of their training?
First, I would say my heart goes out to the 2020 grads, but not just the 2020 grads. I'm going to be honest about this. My heart goes out to the 2020 grads, but also to the 2019 grads and to the 2021 grads. This is not something that is just this year and then we're going to move on from it. It breaks my heart, but I have a lot of emails in my inbox from 2019 grads who have been let go, because this is the way agents work. If you don't book a job, agents need to earn money, and in this year in particular. So some 2019 grads who should right now be out there meeting casting directors and building on the work that they did at the end of last year have found that they haven't got to that next stage in their career, and agents are having to focus on people that are earning money for them. And so there's a lot of 2019 grads that have been let go. And there's I'm getting emails from a lot of 2021 grads who are concerned that their training is mostly online and that they're not getting the quality of training that other graduates have had. So this is not just about 2020 grads, but it's not even just about grads. This is about all of you. This is about everybody, because we are all in this. Everyone is out of work, which means everybody is desperate. I mean, we're all desperate for work at the best of times. What was that? Are you getting? Yeah, so am I. Oh, that stopped. Leonie, it was you. You weren't on mute. Please wave if you get feedback again. That was really strange. Everybody's out of work, and in a situation where everybody is out of work, it means that it is now the buyers, it's the casting directors. They have their pick of everybody. So people who might be at early stages in their career are now competing against people who are very far ahead of them, who are desperate for work. So who are applying for jobs that perhaps a year ago or 2 years ago they wouldn't have looked at, because everybody needs to work. I heard from a casting director recently that they had 9,000 applications for an equity fringe job. They said they'd never had this before, and it wasn't graduates. It was people with really experienced, really top-notch CVs. One of my clients is doing an outdoor Shakespeare company tour, and he rang and he said, I can't believe the people that I had the gall, the guts to ask to do this. And they said, yes, these are people with West End credits that I thought would not be interested in a little five-night run of Midsummer Night's Dream. Everybody wants to work. So while my heart goes out to the 2020, to the graduates of this year, last year, next year, it goes out to all of you in the industry, because we have not been in, I'm not going to use the unpro word because I can't stand it, but none of us have been in this situation before. None of us have been in a position where every person in this industry is out of work and nobody knows what's happening still. We still don't know if theatres are going to be back this year. We still don't know what's going to happen with regional theatre. And believe me, if regional theatres start closing at the rate that we are anticipating that they're going to, that's the spine. That is the backbone of our industry gone. If you imagine how many companies can put out a tour employing 20 or 30 people in the cast, plus crew, plus orchestra, plus musicians, plus creative teams, and just go from venue to venue to venue and be chased by another tour of the same number of people. If the regional theatre circuit collapses, that's the backbone of the industry gone. And it means all the focus comes back to being on commercial West End theatre. And if you count the number of theatres there are in the West End, there's simply not enough jobs there for the number of people that we have in this industry. So my heart goes out to everybody right now, because it's a very scary time for all of us. And I understand that there's anger, and I understand that there's a lot of frustration. Lockdown rage is a real thing, believe me. I was doing one of these a couple of weeks ago, and somebody was saying to me, what are you doing to make sure that 2020 grads have opportunities? What are you doing? And I was like, I'm buying a theatre and I'm going to put on a show and only cast 20. I'm not, what can I do? Look, this is my office, you know, I'm one person. What I can say is we are aware of this. There is not one person in the industry who is not aware that this is a situation. And we are trying to make sure that those opportunities are still there. We are trying to make sure that we will still continue to see that you will not be penalised for this, that your careers are not going to be derailed because of this. But unfortunately, there is an element of that. And we are honestly all in the same boat, you know, but it is a bit like the Titanic, in that there's first class, second class, and then, you know, the Irish locked in the cellar at the bottom doing tap dances with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. So there are different levels in this boat, but we are all in the same boat. And so what I would say is if you are in that group, those graduates, really look out for those opportunities, because those are the people that are really looking for you. But if you're not in those groups, there are also opportunities for you. Make your voices heard. Make us realise there's so much focus on the graduates, but make us realise that you are left behind as well, that you are feeling this, that you are scared too, that you are angry. Don't direct your rage at people, because there's, you know, I didn't cause COVID. There's not much I can do about it. but do make us aware that you feel you are being left behind. For us to get through this, we need to hear from everybody. We need voices from all over, not just the graduates. On that though, I do want to say, in recent years, there has been way too much attention put on getting representation and on signing with an agent. I really want to kind of refocus that back onto you and say, actually, having an agent is great and it's wonderful. And yes, there are certain things that we can do and there are certain things that we can't do. But essentially, we're a business. We're running a business and we need to make money in the same way that you need to make money. Having representation, having an agent, having a good agent, it doesn't make you a better actor. It doesn't make you a better creative. It doesn't do anything other than add to your whole package. Do you know what I mean? You really have to believe in yourself. I strongly and firmly believe, and Leonie again will back me up on this, I always say this, you'll be found. If you are good enough, if you are getting into the room, if you are putting yourself out there and hustling, if you are writing to the right people, if you are getting seen, if you are creating your own work, if you're leaning into the kind of work that you want to do and doing the kind of thing that you love, we notice that. And we want to work with people that there is a buzz about. And if there ain't a buzz about you, create one. Create your own buzz. I've got very little else to do right now, but spend most of my time on Twitter. So I watch everything. Every little short film that people are making, every monologue that people are posting. If it comes up on my feed, I'll watch it. I've got nothing else to do. If your Spotlight link is in your profile and you follow me, I'll click on your Spotlight link and I'll have a look and see, oh, they did that. Oh, that's nice. Sometimes I never approach people, but sometimes by the time they message me or they've liked enough of my comments and I'm just like, okay, this is getting stalkery now, they'll send me a line or they'll drop me an email. It's, yes, Leonie, yes, this is the woman that once pursued me. Literally, she would turn up at theatres and venues that if I posted on Twitter, ooh, off to see this matinee today, she'd be in the row behind me. And I'd be like, oh my God.
That was a complete coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then she sent me a YouTube video of herself saying, I am determined to be represented by you. It's like, whoa, but it worked.
It didn't work, exactly.
So I'm always paying attention to people. I'm always looking at stuff. And if you're creating the kind of things that I'm interested in, I do much more than just agent, if that makes sense. So when people are casting shows, I've got 3 people going in for a musical coming up that 2 I represented and 1 I didn't, but I knew that they had the skill set that the producer was looking for, and I'd noticed them on Twitter. I'd noticed them creating a buzz about themselves and putting their own work out there, so I recommended them. I get asked about opera singers quite a lot because I started in opera. So, you know, one of my friends that I've had for 30 odd years, I got some auditions last year for West End musicals because they happen to be looking for opera singers. I'm always remembering people, and I'm not always just thinking, oh, well, if you're not my client, I'm not interested, because I want people to work and I want producers to have options of the best people available. And I think a lot of us in this industry are like that. We're constantly looking at your stuff. We're constantly thinking, oh, I really like Kat Kumar, but she's not quite right for me. But didn't I hear about somebody that was looking for somebody just like her? It does happen. And I think you have to trust that. I appreciate that at this time, when you're all out there on your own in your living rooms or your bedrooms or your front rooms, or James, you look like you're in a cupboard. But wherever you are.
It's a bit lighter than my cupboard, actually. I should put the light on it. Maybe see you.
But wherever you are, I can see, how lovely. You have a window.
Yeah, I've got a big dark sign that's like Face Off with John Travolta or something.
But I think wherever you are, we are, you know, you can be making stuff, you can be creating, you can be putting work out there. And I always say hard work is its own reward. And I think, please, I'm sorry if this is ageist, but I do think when you get to around about the 30 plus mark, this lands and it makes sense to you that actually not everything has an immediate outcome. I get a lot of graduates or sort of 22, 23-year-olds who send me short films that they've made, and I'll watch them. and say, that's great. And they'll say, well, I made it 6 months ago and I still haven't been called in by any casting directors off the back of it. I'm like, well, if that's why you made it, then it's failed. But if you made it because you love making film and you want to learn how to make film and you want to get better at making film, then it's been a success. One of my last acting jobs that I did before I gave up acting was the feature film Pride, which I don't know if any of you have seen, there's some nods there. And the writer of that film rang me and said, I've written a small part in this film that I based on your drag act that I'd done 17 years earlier. So, you know, that was a 17-year gap and 17-year payoff between something that I did because I loved, you know, being the center of attention in a pub, trotting around in heels, wig and a frock and belting out maybe this time. But 17 years later, the writer of the movie remembered that and cast me in it. So what I say is hard work is its own reward. Do it because you love it. Do it because you are creatives. Do it because this is what you want to do, not because you're expecting an immediate response. Because if you're expecting an immediate response, you will mark it up as a failure and you'll probably never do it again. And one short film is not enough for us to kind of go, oh, here's somebody who's really interested in film. Let's give them a chance to write something bigger or longer. Michaela Cole didn't write I May Destroy You. There was a process where she wrote a one-woman monologue for drama school, which was then developed into something bigger and then was developed into a TV series, Chewing Gum, which then led on to her being able to do more and more work to the point where she could write I May Destroy You. One of my favorite writers at the moment, and I'm listening to a lot of her podcasts and a lot of her audiobooks and reading, is I don't know about you, but I go through phases at the moment where I can't read. I can't focus for long periods of time. So I found audiobooks have really helped me. But Brené Brown, she talks about a 3-day course that she teaches about building yourself and getting to know yourself. And the feedback that she gets, she teaches it all over the world, and the feedback she always gets is, day 2 of this is horrible. We hate day 2. It's really difficult. And she spent ages trying to work out if she can make day 2 easier. And then she realized you can't get to day 3 unless you go through day 2. And it's the other example I use is Beethoven. Beethoven's Symphony No. 3 is a masterpiece. Symphony No. 2, not so much. But he couldn't write Symphony No. 3 until he'd written No. 2. You Sue swallow. Sue's being attacked by a cat. I love it. There's a process, and you can't leapfrog the process. Leonie, you'll probably remember this as one of my favorite phrases. You can't jump the Grand Canyon on a unicycle. You got to put the work. Sorry, I'm loving this. I put my dog and my cat's in the garden and my dog's upstairs, so I feel you. But there's a process. You have to, A leads to B, leads to C. You can't go from A to Z. There's 24 letters in between, and who knows where they're going to take you, but you've got to go there in order to get to Z. I don't even know what question I was answering there. I told you I just talk.
I was just going to say that sounds very much like my experience, Jay. So what you're saying, you know, rings a bell with me. So I left the industry, possibly for similar reasons that you did, from the sounds of things, a good 10 years ago. And then sort of randomly, or it seemed random at the time, found myself teaching screen acting, which is my passion, film. But my experience of it as an actor didn't match up my passion and my dream, and coaching it has been fantastic and very exciting and has changed my whole perspective, and I've learned a tremendous amount now, and I'm very much getting very close to 52. I'm thinking of getting back into the industry. So I suppose my question would be, what's your feeling about that? Somebody of my venerable age trying to get back in.
Clutch my pearls. Again, I keep throwing this back to Leonie so that she nods, just so that I feel that she's engaged in this. One of my favorite things to say to my clients when they'd say to me, oh, I'm thinking of going away for a year to teach refugees in China, or I'm thinking of taking some time out to write this novel that I've been working on, or I'm thinking of doing this. Is it going to ruin my acting career? And I'd be like, yeah, it is, absolutely. The industry is going to stop. The industry is just going to be like, oh my God, Philip Wolf has left. Oh my God, we all have to stop, shut down, nothing can happen. I mean, I can't use that anymore because the industry has shut down. But I actually love returners. I think returners and people with life experience are so much more interesting. There's an intensity to new grads. I don't know why I keep looking at Kat when I talk about new grads. I think it's the youthful, you're sort of glowing with youth there, Kat. But there's an intensity about being a new grad, and there's this feeling that if you haven't made, when I was at Mountview, we talked about 5 years. If we hadn't made it in 5 years, we'd give up. I mean, what did we know back then? 5 years is no time at all. 5 years is about the time that it takes for you to start getting in the room. It's certainly not the point at which you start stopping to talk about it. So there's an intensity in those sort of first few years that I love. I kind of thrive on that intensity, and that's why I love working with graduates so much. But my goodness, there's a certain sense of calm with working with somebody who's been through it, who's stopped, who's come back to it, and who is just one of my favorite actors, recently retired, and she'd been with me for quite a while. And I loved the fact that she was just like, I came to this late, I'm just happy to do anything. And she was happy to do anything. And she understudied Vanessa Redgrave in The Inheritance in the West End. And it was one of her favourite jobs, and she loved it. I think she got to go on like 3 times, but she said, that's not why I did it. I did it because it was just lovely to be in a room with her and with that cast, those lovely, lovely, beautiful boys with very little on most of the time. And she loved that. And she did a couple of doctors and a bit of radio and a bit of this and a bit of that. And there was just a sort of sense of calm to her, that she was finally, having brought up her children and had a career, several careers actually, she'd finally found her way back to doing what she really loved doing. But there was a sense of calm about it. There wasn't a sense that she had to become Judi Dench within the next 3 years. She was just happy to do anything. With graduates, it's almost the opposite. It's almost the feeling that if they haven't become Judi Dench within 3 years, then it's all been a waste of time and a disaster. But Philip, you come back to the industry with a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I think what I'm talking about, the ability to work creatively alongside pursuing a career as an actor. It must be so fulfilling to be teaching screen acting and teaching writing and that stuff alongside, because it informs your own practice and your own technique as an actor. It only makes you better.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I found myself writing, doing a bit of directing, and you're absolutely spot on. They're none of them are mutually exclusive. They all feed into each other. So yeah, I definitely discovered that.
Also, I think the older you are and the more that you crammed in and the more that you've tried to do, the easier it is to kind of be able to see that you can do it. I worked with somebody recently and they said, oh, I just, there's no work, I'm not getting seen. I mean, very typical casting. I could throw a coin and hit 300 of him in like 5 yards. And I said, why don't you try writing? And he said, oh, I'm not a writer. And I said, I think everybody can write. And I'm not saying, why don't you try writing King Lear? I'm saying, why don't you try writing? You know, just put pen to paper and see what comes out. And I suggested quite a few books to him and said, why don't you try this book and study the hero's journey and the 7 things. And he said, actually, I teach creative writing. But he hadn't connected that was something that he could do alongside acting. I think that kind of lands when you're 40 and 50, that you suddenly go, all my experiences are just part of me. I always say your business card says Philip Wolf Creative, not Philip Wolf Actor. Because if it says Philip Wolf Actor, everything you do that is not acting is going to feel like it's taking you away from it. But if it says Philip Wolf Creative, everything you do is just, you are the brand, you are the company, and everything you do is just it's just one great mess of creativity. And who knows where it's going to lead.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. At the moment, it's writer, director, screenwriter. So actually, if I put that in a much smaller card.
But, you know, multi-hyphenates, I love them. It's, you know, years ago, we'd have called them portfolio. And it's this idea that comes around every so often, this new trend. And right now, we're calling them multi-hyphenates. And years ago, we called them portfolio careers. Actually, the term originated, bizarrely, and then, you know, it originated in Hollywood to describe actors who also wanted a chance at directing. We started calling them multi-hyphenates. And that was, we're sort of talking back in sort of the 50s and 60s. And I find it so strange that we've moved away from encouraging actors to do that, and then back to it with portfolio careers 20 years ago, and then away from it again, and now back to it again. And just, your journey is your journey. You do what you want to do and screw anybody else, you know? It'll take, your path will be your path, and comparison will kill creativity, absolutely kill it.
Good advice, good advice. Thanks, Jay. Yeah.
Jay,
Questions? Yes, Jay.
at this lockdown period with this pandemic going on, would you say this is a good time or a bad time to be writing to an agent looking for representation? Or in my case, it's new representation, because I've been with the same agent. It's quite unusual, probably, I would say. I've been with the same agent for 16 years. And it's with me, there's this kind of feeling with myself that I've been probably too loyal. I've stayed when, you know, I've just probably swept things under the carpet a bit. And I haven't realized that over a period of time, I've been becoming a little bit disgruntled, and I've swept that under the carpet. And I've been finding the last few years, I've been getting work through my own connections, mainly. And that's in theatre and film, TV and stuff like that. And I can go for months without hearing a peep from my agent at all. And it's all come to the kind of point now where if I'm not hearing from my agent for months, there must be something wrong. And then at the end of last year, my agent brought back an assistant who'd been in the agency many, many years ago, but she'd left to become a mother, and she returned. And when the assistant came back, suddenly it was like, boom, I'm getting an audition just about every week or every couple of weeks, and she's getting me self-tapes. And suddenly I was getting, my phone was ringing, and that was the agent's assistant coming back. I've a relationship with my agent. It's been a long time, 16 years. So, but I'm just feeling that, you know, it's time to move on. I don't think about ageism with agents. To me, it's black and white. An agent wants to see if you can make them money. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Now,
should age come into that? Not as far as I'm concerned. But then I don't know. I'm not an agent, so it's sometimes I feel I'm 55 now. Is that going to prove an obstacle in finding a new agent? And do you know? So I'm going around the houses a little bit, but I'm kind of trying to give you the gist of what's happening with myself personally in my situation.
Can I just say, if you're not doing voiceover, then your voice is...
I've been doing voiceover for a while. Yeah, I'm pursuing that in a much more kind of steadfast way these days. Yeah, we've been doing some classes with Leonie.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to get out of your cupboard. Just talk.
I like Leonie's cupboard. She's got a great cupboard.
She has got a great cupboard. James, I think loyalty is important. I really do. I'm a big fan of loyalty. But loyalty can come in a number of ways. It doesn't have to be blind. Leonie, I don't represent her anymore, but that doesn't mean that she is not loyal to me and I'm not loyal to her. We are still very good friends. We're still close. We still chat every so often. If I see a job that I think she's right for, you know, I'll let her know. And, you know, she asked me to do this. Loyalty comes in all different forms. I think my husband often asks me why I don't work with older actors. And there's a number of reasons for that. And one is, as you identify, older actors tend to stay with their agents for long periods of time. And I think part of it is because the obsession with getting an agent is different. I have drama schools phone me up and ask if I will look at the CVs of their graduating year who have not signed. Because drama schools like to announce that they have 100% of their students got signed with an agent this year. So what? Whereas I remember interviewing Penelope Keith a few years back when she was in The Rivals in the West End. And if you know who Penelope Keith is, you'll know that this is not a woman who takes prisoners and takes absolutely no nonsense from anybody. And she went off on one about agents, and she was like, well, what do they know? What do agents know? They know how to make a buck, and that's all they know. They know how to put somebody into a long-running musical and leave them there for 10 years and take their money and run. That's all. And she said, in my day, we never thought about agents. We thought about getting a job. And then we thought about getting another.
I saw that on your website, getting a job and learning.
Yeah.
I checked out your website before.
And I think that's
the big quote thing.
16 years ago, if you landed an agent and they were working for you, that's great. But
Sure.
you know that the job of being an actor is working. It's not having an agent. That doesn't make you a good actor. It doesn't make you a better actor than somebody that doesn't have an agent. Having an agent is very little to do with it. Sure, it's great to have somebody that you can say, oh, please handle that contract, I don't understand it. But at the end of the day, you're the one in the room, you're the one booking the job, and you're the one you know yourself better than any agent knows you. I do think there's a massive advantage, as you've seen and you have evidence for, of a fresh pair of eyes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm advising you to move agents. What I always say is communication. And it may simply be that you just need to light a fire under your agent and say, I've been with you for 16 years. My phone doesn't ring anymore. I appreciate that there's not that much work for 55-year-olds. And I appreciate that in my casting bracket, Pierce Brosnan is hoovering everything up. But when an assistant came in, my phone started to ring. And I started to get more castings. And I'm wondering whether a fresh pair of eyes on my career would be of use to me. Now, if they really want to keep you, they will up their game, they will fight tooth and nail, and you'll see a difference. They may simply turn around and say, actually, yes, James, you're right. I don't think there is much further that we can go. And then you will know. Loyalty has to work as a two-way communication. It's not simply about saying, I expect you to do this and I'm going to forget about it for 16 years. It's about staying on it and saying, this isn't working for me right now. Is there something we can do together to make it work? Or is it time for me to move on and to look around? If they want to keep you, they will pull out all the stops and work hard and try to keep you and try to work out why you're not getting seen. It may be that they are already working that hard and they just can't get you in the room, in which case, yes, a fresh pair of eyes.
Yeah. So I often think with these, it's about their connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also about maximizing your connections as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, no, I've never been one to be bitter about it. I hear actors becoming quite bitter and resentful. But I think sometimes that I can almost be a little bit too accepting of the situation and, like I say, sweep things under the carpet. And you've got to be a bit selfish, a bit more selfish about it, and weigh up the pros and cons and look at it in its bone white light, what's going on, and possibly, like you say, have that conversation with my agent, because the assistant came back, but she'll be furloughed now, more than likely. I haven't heard a peep, so it's and I wrote to a few agents before lockdown started, and then lockdown came along, and I thought, is this really an ideal time to be writing and looking for representation? Or
I would say now is. I would say the beginning of lockdown wasn't, because at the beginning of lockdown, I think there's quite a lot of agents that didn't know whether they were going to get through it or not. But now that we're coming out of it and we're starting to see work coming out of it, I think, now's a good time to follow up on those emails or to cast your net a little bit wider and have a look around again. I don't think age has anything to do with it at all. Judi Dench hasn't stopped working.
No, I know.
There are roles.
I'm thinking about your age of finding and looking for new representation. But I think too, is it partly, correct me if I'm wrong, let me know what you think, but are agents, are you far more likely to find representation through a recommendation if you know an actor, they can recommend you to that agent. And as well, is it also more likely if you're in something? And of course, that's the situation we're in at the moment. There's no theatre. I do have a new show reel, so that's something I could certainly send them.
And that's, you've nailed it. I say always get in touch when you have something to say. And if you have a new show reel or a new cut of a show reel, then that's exactly the time. So many people at your age, James, I think more people are going to be interested in the work that you've done and in your CV and in your show reel, in your package, in your material, than necessarily need to see you in something. We appreciate that there's no chance of us seeing you in something at the moment. So
and you've got all these new graduates that are flooding agencies at the moment, and
but they're not your casting type.
Yeah.
So you're not competing with them. And we all do want a nice balance. We want to be able to go from the 18-year-olds right up to the 60, 70-year-olds. Particularly right now, it's like almost every commercial that I see is looking for, grandfathers and dads with children and stuff like that. And there's plenty of work out there for all ages. I think now is the time to be dropping back in touch with people and saying, as we come out of this is what I've been doing during lockdown. I've got a new cut of my show reel. I'm now looking for new representation. I'd love to have a Zoom chat with you, and just get in touch, see what the interest is out there. But you did say yourself that, sometimes we relax a little bit into it. And I always remind people of the 90-10. Your agent takes 10%, so they do 10% of the work. The other 90% is on you. And if you're not doing 90% of the work for your own career, then step that up. And that's what it really is. And I do think that kind of happens when you've been in a good relationship with an agent for a long time, like a marriage,
Yeah.
In a relationship with my husband, we've been together for 13 years, and I'm well aware I take him for granted. I have to say this because he's upstairs and can probably hear me. But you kind of take a good...
Yeah, well, I was taken on by my agent when I was living... I did my drama training down here. But within about a year of leaving drama college down here, I moved back to Scotland. So that was about 1996. And back in those days, there were very few Scottish agents. I think there's very, very few now. There might even be less than 10 in the whole of Scotland. And it was my goal to get taken on by what were called one of the best Scottish agents. And I achieved that. And that was 2004. But within a couple of years of being taken on by my agent in Scotland, I moved back to London again. And there were personal reasons for that. I had a young son who was living down in Kent, and I wanted to see more of my son. So that was a big reason down. And I think my agent at the time thought, James has moved to London. We've only signed him a couple of years ago. He's going to leave, I think. And I had a long conversation with my agent at the time, who's since passed away, and the agent's been taken over by our daughter. Our daughter's been running the agency for many years. And I didn't leave because they had an office in London. So they had an office in Edinburgh and an office in London. And I thought, well, this is the best of both worlds, because I've got a base up there. I live down here. I can always go back to Scotland, and that's where I'm from. That's my accent and everything. And so yeah, there's a bit of a tale about that. But it's like I say, I think I've just kind of, not been. It's partly me as well. I haven't really been always that focused and really determined about my career as I am much more now. And that's kind of fallen into place to my realizations and thinking, it's time to move on. But no, thank you. Thanks for your...
about your journey is your journey. And I always say to my clients, you are a human being first and a creative second. Life comes first. Bringing up your son, being close to your son. This is more important than doing your Dundee rep and playing 6 characters and a footman. Do you know what I mean? That relationship with your son and making your creative life fit into that life is much more important than the other way around. Because otherwise you get to 60, you get to 65 and you go, well, I've had a great career, but I have no relationship with my family. And what are people going to say about me at my eulogy? You played great roles? No. We are the sum of the connections that we make with people. We're not what we do. And I think in our industry, we get confused by that a lot, because so much of how we feel about ourselves is based on what work we do and how that work is perceived by people.
Yeah. How you value yourself, and then if you're not working, and then you devalue your work, and you devalue yourself as an actor because you're not working, and that's something that I've learned through experience.
We are not what we do, and we are the connections that we make with people, and that is the key. That's the success. So you had your life, and now you have the time to kind of focus on
it.
Light that fire under it, James, and kickstart it again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm kind of focused and determined about it now. Absolutely. And pursuing the voiceover thing with Leonie. Leonie's great. Workshops are fab. Thank you very much for
You're
that.
welcome, James.
Thank you.
Go on, see you go.
Hey, Georgie. What?
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey.
Georgie's letting the old lady go first. So thanks, Georgie. I have worked out that I am the oldest on this call. So there we are. So putting age aside, so I'm with a co-op. So I've had a corporate career, 30 years, really successful, loved it, but always wanted to act. So 2 and a bit years ago, decided to do acting professionally, and I'm now with a co-op, and it's been brilliant because I've learned a lot about the industry. I know more about casting. I'm subbing actors, so I'm kind of mentoring, and I worked in learning and development, so it's lovely mentoring younger actors and things. But at what point should I kind of move on? I mean, what are your views about co-ops? Because I don't think they always get, they're not always well received within the industry, as far as I know.
I was in a co-op. I was a rogue. I was in Rogues and Vagabonds for a few years. I love co-ops. I really do. And it's one of the things I often say to graduates: look at co-ops, but also look at going self-represented. There's a movement in the industry towards that. I see Debbie Currup, who's in Prince of Egypt, is self-represented. It's not doing her career any harm. And I think the reason I didn't move on from a co-op to another agency. I simply left and I went self-represented. And the reason I did it was because of part of my frustration with the co-op is that there was a different person every day running the agency. And I was in my mid-30s at the time, and not blowing my own trumpet, my last acting role, I was 40 and I was playing a 22-year-old. And I would get in for my day in the office once a week, and I would look through, because you look through your subs to see what you've been subbed for. And I was being subbed for dads and things like that. And it was like, put me next to a teenage boy, it looks really weird. It still does. And they just, because they didn't know me. And because in a co-op, there isn't the time to get to know everybody in the way that one agent knows their client list or should know their client list. And so it got to the point where I thought, I understand now how the industry works. I understand that, just because I look right and I've got the right skills, that doesn't necessarily mean the casting director is going to call me in. There's 1,000,001 reasons. One of them is I don't have the necessary experience. They're going for people more experienced. I'm trying to jump the Grand Canyon on a unicycle. I'm pitching myself a Romeo at the National Theatre instead of, third tree from the left at the National Theatre, because that's where my CV was saying. And you learn all of that in a co-op. If you have a good eye for that kind of stuff, you kind of go, well, yes, dear, I know that you think you can play Juliet, but believe me, that's not going to happen at this particular venue. Let's adjust expectations, and you get to understand that. And so I left so that I could do it for myself. And I was only gone for about a year. I was only self-represented for a year. But during that time, I took projects that I loved, that I wanted to do because they were people that I wanted to work with, and I knew it would be fun. And it took all the pressure off. I must do this because this casting director will see me and cast me in a better role, or I'll get a better agent. And it's one of the reasons why Edinburgh Fringe is kind of exhausting for me when I go to Edinburgh Fringe as an actor, as an agent. It's because everybody that is working there for very little money, and they're working there because they want something. They want a casting director to see them. They want an agent to see them and to get a better agent. And so you sit through, and Leonie will tell you, I'd sit through 7 shows. I'd see 7 shows a day at Edinburgh Fringe. And the energy coming from the stage was so almost desperate. And what we had forgotten was that our job is to tell a story. And when we are looking for something else to happen, when we are looking for that casting director to like us, or we're looking for that agent to sign us, we forget that our job is simply telling a story, and that's all that we are there for. And so I would get back to my hotel just absolutely drained and shattered. So during that year, I just took projects that I knew that would be fun. I stopped worrying about whether they were leads. I stopped worrying about what venue they were at. And I got a better agent from it, because I think it was because I wasn't on stage going, oh my God, this has got to be this one. I always used to say that I'd start every day first day of rehearsal, every morning, I'd be like, this is the one. And I'd get home that night and I'd be like, maybe next time. Because I was doing it for the wrong thing. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to tell the story. I was doing it because I wanted something from it. So I think you'll know when the time is right for you to leave. And it sounds like, if you're like, some of you who've read my blogs or my Twitter will know that I'm a recovering alcoholic. It's like one of the things that we say in AA is, if you have to ask if you have a drinking problem, you have a drinking problem. And I think if you have to ask, is it time for me to leave my co-op? It's time for you to leave.
But your point there about not doing something because of that desperation, I think is a really key one for me to learn. Because I am older and I haven't got that long, in as much as I'm not a graduate. I might have 20 years, but I won't have 50. But that is a really, really lovely learning point for me, because I do tend to get a bit, oh gosh, if it's too late, so just concentrate on loving what I do. And that is going to enhance my performance so much more than thinking, are they noticed? Am I any good? Will I, which is.
So for you, you're living the dream right now.
I am. I know that, actually. I do know that. I love it. If I get an audition, it doesn't matter if I don't get it, I just love it. And I think being older as well, for me, I don't want to again be kind of patronising or ageist, but I'm loving it. I've always wanted to do this since I was 6, and now I'm doing it. So everything is a bonus. But that, what you said there, really spoke to me. So I'm going to take that on board. Thank you.
You're welcome. Georgie.
Hi. Hi. So, and I was just wondering, just about, because I'm kind of self-represented, kind of not, but kind of might as well be. But in terms of I'm not that great at contacting casting directors. However proactive I am, I feel like there I sort of let myself down. And in terms of I've got some new work that I've been doing myself recently. So would it be an idea to get in contact with them to be like, hey, this is me, this is what I've been doing, would you recommend doing that? Because I never really know how to go about it.
I always say, when contacting casting directors or contacting agents, the key is to have something to say. Don't simply contact going, hi, I'm Georgie, you got anything for me? Because no, is the simple answer. But if you're getting in touch and saying, and this is a good time, because people can be getting in touch and saying, this is what I've been working on during lockdown. And I always say that contacting somebody, all it is making a contact. It's not, it's back to what I was just saying to Sue, don't expect anything from it. Do it because you want to add that person to your contact. I very often will contact a casting director to tell them how much I love their work. Like Julie Harkin, who was casting director on I May Destroy You. So I binged it in a day, and the next day I emailed Julie's office to just say how much I loved it. It wasn't, I really loved it, here's a list of my clients that would be right for season 2. It was literally just, I love your work on this. It was the key to networking, which is what I think you're talking about, and what you're saying that you have a bit of a mental block is, and this last hour should be a demonstration of that. The key to networking is get somebody to talk about themselves. and they can just go, and all you need to do is just stand there, smile and nod, and we will come away from that meeting going, what a lovely person Georgie is. But if you're thinking that networking is about, I'm doing this, you must like me, you must want me, you must pay attention to me, we'll come away just going, oh my God, that was exhausting. That was really tiring. And people come up to me, or used to come up to me all the time at theatres. I'd get stopped at, if I was heading to my seat or at the bar, and people would say, oh, I love your tweets, or I read your blog, I love this. And I'd be like, it throws me. But the best meetings that I have are when people say, tell me a bit more about your time in a co-op, or tell me a bit more about how you got into recovery, or tell me a bit more about what it was like working on Pride. I can talk about myself until the cows come home. But if that person is kind of going, so what are you working on next? What are you doing next? And how can I get seen by you? And are you taking on new clients at the moment? It's a bit like, oh my God, I'm just here with my husband for, a night at the theatre. Please go away and stop scaring me. I always say, be interested, not interesting. And if you are interested in somebody else, they will find you interesting, because we all love to talk about ourselves. Yeah. It's a hustle, and I know it's a hustle. So I always say, just keep it short. You do not need, and in fact, we will prefer it if your email or your approach to us is short and brief, like six sentences. Here is what I have been working on during lockdown. I'm sending it to you because I really loved what you did casting this show, and I think I took inspiration from that show and created this. That is so much better than, I'm Georgie, I'm 23, I trained at blah, 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 I'm really interested in dance, drama, blah. And it's like, oh my God, really? I do not need your life story.
Thanks for the compliment, 23. No, that's interesting, thank you so much.
I hope that's helpful. Kat, and then Apollo.
Hello.
Hi.
So, hi, I've got a question as well about being self-represented, because I was acting before I went to drama school, and I've had agents, and my bar and my expectations of what I want from my next agent's quite high. So I'm being very patient, and I'm not just going with people who are approaching me, and I'm quite happy at the moment to be on my own. I have the same attitude with boyfriends. Unless they can fulfill my life, then I'm happy to go it alone. But what you were talking to Georgie about networking with casting directors, I was just curious, if you're self-represented and you don't have access to those breakdowns on Spotlight, that even an agent who's not maybe at the top of your list would still get you access to, what other ways are there of finding castings for yourself, I suppose, apart from social media? Like, do you have any little tips, or is it advisable to sort of settle for an agent and then just so that you can have access? My issue with that is that I know that I will just leave them in like 3 to 6 months time, and I don't want to do that to an agent. So I just really love your advice.
I love the analogy of it being like a boyfriend. It's really good, because I always say that. I always say it's a relationship, and you want it to be like James's. You want it to be 16 years. You want it to be a long-term relationship. I certainly do. I don't want to invest my time and energy, and frankly my money, because I work for most of my clients for free until they start earning. I don't want to invest all of that in somebody that's going to leave me in 3 months.
Yes, exactly.
But what I would say is, it's great about having a checklist of what you want, but you must be prepared to compromise, and you must be able to kind of go, right, I have 15 things that I want from an agent. Oh, this agent offers me 10. Okay, that's I can live with 10, and maybe my next agent will offer me 11 or 12. And then, so I don't think any one agent is ever going to tick all your boxes. When I met my husband, I had a checklist of what I wanted. I was in my mid-30s. Believe me, I'd been around the block. And I had a check, and I was having a very good summer that year. And I had a checklist of exactly what I wanted from a boyfriend. And I think he met like 4 of the 10 things. But when it's right, and you compromise on the things that you thought were important. In terms of finding work for yourself, yes, social media is great for that. More and more castings are being put on social media. If you don't want to pay for the casting sites, I think Backstage, I generally give out some free memberships if you sign up to this or sign up to that. There are some castings on there, Castweb, Castnet, casting networks, all these things are great. But I think, and it's similar to the advice I gave to Georgie, I watch TV with IMDb open. And part of that is because I love kind of going, where have I seen that actor before? And do research. But do that with casting directors. When you see something on TV that you go, that's my world, that I could be in. Not that I could be in if like the entire system of casting was changed and you know, everything was colorblind and we were all equal and all treated equally. I could be in that show. But you really go, that's my world. Those are my people. I could be in that. See who that casting director is. Find out what else they've done, because I will bet you will find that other shows that they've done will also speak to you in that way. You'll also go, yes, they are looking for me. And then get in touch. So you build your hit list of casting directors that are working with people who are like you, that are working on projects that you want to be involved in, and write to them. Send them your show reel. Sometimes your email will land on the day that they happen to be flicking through a casting brief and thinking, who do I know that might fit this? Oh, here's a bloody email. Because the universe works like that sometimes. So don't be afraid to be in touch with people. If you get nothing, if you get no feedback from them or nothing back from them, don't worry about it. 9 times out of 10 you won't. But if you do, it means they're interested in you. Maybe not right now, but you keep that contact going. You send them a Christmas card. You send them a Happy New Year card. When you see on Twitter that they've just had a piece of good news announced, you write and congratulate them. You show that you are invested in their work, and I promise you they will be invested in you. So it's about building that network and building wide. Is my favorite quote right now. Build wide in order to build high. The wider your base, the wider your network is at the bottom of the pyramid, the easier it is to climb. If you're working from a really small base, you're trying to climb like that, trying to climb a really steep pyramid. Build wide, and it's easier to get to the top. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, very helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Apollo.
Hi, so a 2020 graduate here. Yay.
Hey.
It's fantastic. I'm not at all panicking. But I have a kind of a question, because a lot of the time when we talk to like industry professional stuff, at least because we have like a sister management company for a school, and they were talking about how certain breakdowns, it's kind of what Kat was talking about, goes only to the agents. And then as a graduate, especially this year, we don't really, at least I don't have a show reel. I have a couple of self-tapes and I suppose doing more of that, but wider than that with an agent as a graduate, is it something like to yeah,
Basically you're like, help.
yeah.
Okay, I say this to everybody. This, if Lady Gaga, is it Gaga or Gaga? I never know.
Gaga.
As soon as I say Gaga, I just feel like, oh my God, there goes my good schooling. It just comes out. Lady Gaga. If Lady Gaga can film a music video on her phone, if Steven Soderbergh can film an entire feature film on an iPhone 7, then you can film a monologue or a duologue, 30 seconds of material. As long as the sound and the lighting are good and we can see you, that is how you can get something on there. One of the casting directors at the BBC said a couple of years back, he would rather have 10 seconds of self-filmed footage than nothing. All we're seeing is whether you can act and whether you can react and what you look like on camera. And you can do that yourself. You don't need to spend a fortune on expensive show reels. You can do that yourself. You can create your own show reel. James, I'm just going to come back to you, but I've just read James's comment in the side. This is brilliant. He says, when contacting CDs, we're waving at you, and with agents showing our product. That's a brilliant way of thinking about it. Think of what I do. I sell you. An agent sells you as a commodity, as a product, and a casting director buys you. So when it's a different way of pitching yourself. When you're pitching yourself at an agent, you are telling them what they have to sell, what they have to work with. but when you're pitching yourself at a casting director, you're telling them why you should buy it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's brilliant advice from Ben Cogan there, and I think he's terrific. I get it's scary. I get that if you're unrepresented, you're only seeing 10% of breakdowns that come through on Spotlight. I do know that there are so many casting directors now that are not using exclusive lists, that are putting their breakdowns out to everybody. The problem, and that, you know, that's been something that I've been advocating for years, that I think we should be much more inclusive and put breakdowns out to everybody. However, the flip side of that is that if you put a breakdown out to everybody, that's 70,000 people who all, because all actors think that they're versatile and can do everything. That's 70,000 people that think, oh, I can do that. And are applying for it, and it overloads the casting director. And so I always say, keep it really specific. Really do think about whether you can do that. And we have moved on from the days of oh, if I had a tan, I could pass for, you know, Hispanic or Mediterranean. We've moved on from that these days, and we are much more specific. So really do think about whether, if you are quite a laid back, quite shy, quite reserved person, whether you are going to be the natural first choice for something that is really out there and punky and wild. And then that way we might encourage more casting directors to use, to put their breakdowns out to everybody. Look at workshops, go to workshops. Particularly workshops where you get the chance to work one-on-one with the casting director, and you're going to get feedback rather than just go into a room and you sing or you do your piece for them and then off you go. You want to be seen and you want to be learning all the time. If you're paying, you want to be learning. Keep an eye out. Remember that your network, when I talk about building your network wide, think about the people that you're training with. How many are on your course?
We were 13.
13. So that's 13 people, 13 other people who all have a network of their own. Talk to each other, work with each other, share knowledge. I always say that my clients are the best resource that I have. The information that comes into me from them, because they're out there, not at the moment, but, you know, in better times, they're out in bars chatting to other actors. They're on set, they're sitting in audition rooms, hearing a bit of gossip here and a bit of gossip there. And then they call me and they're like, I hear that Matthew Waters is casting such and such. And I'm like, I haven't heard that. Let me get on to and see what I can find out. So they are your network as well. Also remember, people move around a lot in this industry. I started as an actor and now I'm an agent who occasionally gives advice to people on casting. Some people will move into producing. Some people will move into directing. Keep in touch with all of them. Add them to your network and keep thinking of, I'm going wider and wider. I'm working a lot with grime artists and rappers and people like that at the moment. It's not my world. I know nothing about it. But it's, you know, take every opportunity and see every opportunity as the opportunity to increase your network and to add to your little black book of contacts. And because everybody is in the same boat, find your tribe. Really, really find your people who are feeling the same. And if you can't find them, set up your own tribe. Go onto Twitter and say, hi, I'm a 2020 graduate. I'm feeling, are you Greek, Apollo?
No, I'm Russian.
Oh, you're Russian. So go on to Spot. Do you speak Russian?
Yes.
Set up a play reading group. Read Chekhov in the original language with other Russian actors who are in London who are feeling frustrated. Do it like this on a Zoom call. Find your own tribe. Build that way, and I promise you, you'll suddenly start adding people that have been in this industry for a lot longer than you, who've got nothing to do and would relish the chance of reading Masha in the original language, and just kind of build that network of your own, or speak to other 2020 grads and say, anybody want to kind of make a short film together? I don't know how we do it, but let's chat. Let's have a Zoom thing and have a conversation about it. If you can't find a tribe to join, build your own tribe. And that's advice for all of you, really. There's a lot of banging on doors and trying to be let in. Fuck them. Go and build your own castle. Go and, as Adam Lenson, who's a musical theatre director, says, go and build a bonfire in the park, and everybody will come to the bonfire because they see the light.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of keeping busy because I am having like a writers group, and a couple of my friends are here as well. So we're kind of planning on doing a web series and kind of filming that. So in that sense, I'm feeling quite confident, and I'm doing workshops, so I'm meeting people. So like you said, that area of it is kind of good, and I'm like, okay, slowly expanding. But what kind of worries me a bit is because I have so little, comparatively speaking, on my CV versus someone who's worked in the industry for years, and then will probably apply for semi-similar things, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna be drowned out and just not notice at all.
Do you all see what I mean about the intensity of the graduates? Apollo, you need a bit more Sue. You're
I
living
know.
the dream. You are living the dream. You are doing what you want to be doing. This is what it is. Ask Sue, ask James, ask Philip, ask the older people. Is this what it's supposed to feel like? Yes, it is. It's supposed to be scary all the time. Stop comparing the first day of rehearsal to somebody else's closing night. You're talking about, I've got nothing on my CV, and there's all these people with like really, well, of course, they're a lot older than you. They've been doing it for a lot longer. Don't rush something that you want to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you start trying to fly over the Grand Canyon on a unicycle, and you're going to go down. You're going to be like, I was going to say Roger Rabbit, but like what's me? What's that one? Roadrunner.
Yeah.
Roadrunner. You're going to be like Roadrunner. Thank you, Leonie. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, I suppose
You're
kind
not in competition with anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody at all. The only person you're in competition with is the person that you see in the mirror.
Yes.
Are you better than you were yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Are you better than you were the day before yesterday? That's it. That's the comparison. You start looking at other people's Instagram. Believe me, that's all lies. That is all, even my Twitter is manufactured to make myself look better because it makes me feel better. Mm-hmm. If I post something, it's like, booked a feature film today for a client. And it's like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like, it's one word and it'll probably get cut, but it makes me feel good. And I get all these likes and people are like, killing it, smashing it. But none of it's true. None of it's real. Did I book a feature film for somebody yesterday? No. Did I book one today? Yes. So therefore, I'm doing better than I was yesterday. I can't compare myself with an agent at Independent or an agent at Curtis Brown. That's not my path. That's not my journey. That's not who I am. All I can do is say, am I doing better than I was yesterday? Comparison is the killer of creativity. Stop comparing yourself to anybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Can I get an amen up in here?
Can I get an amen?
Yeah.
Yes, amazing. I mean, brilliant.
We need a bit more Sue. Yes, we do.
Yes. I mean, if that wasn't inspiring and enlightening, I don't know what would be. Thank you so much. Unless there's any more questions from anybody. No, I think we've all had our... It's so funny on my screen. I don't know if it's the same on yours, but I've got Jay in the middle and everybody's like nicely around and like it's very cute. So that's what it's going to look like in the recording. Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much, Jay.
Fabulous. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you all for sharing and for being vulnerable and for talking about your fears, because we are all in the same boat. And I hope that Apollo, you've got something out of it, and Sue's got something out of it, and Georgie and Philip and James and Pat and even Leonie, who has heard me say this shit for years.
And write it.
But Leonie will tell you, and Apollo, this is probably most important for you. Leonie will agree with me on this. Sometimes it doesn't land for a couple of years. In like 2 or 3 years, you'll suddenly go, that's what they meant. That's what they were talking about. Oh, God, I wish that had made sense to me earlier. But it didn't. And I can't force it. I can't inject it into your brain. It will land when it lands. And when it does, it's wonderful because you suddenly just exhale. But what I would say to all of you is, you're living the dream. This is what you wanted. You wanted to be a working actor. And that means being a resting actor 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warts
So
and all.
Indeed.
I still remember that actually from when we had our initial meeting and kind of chat about whether we wanted to work together. And I remember you saying that actors nowadays are so scared of resting, and that like 20 years ago, it was fine to work 3 months out of a year. And now everybody is just grasping for jobs and just taking any job just so that they can say that they're working.
And we
really
wonder why we're in a mental health crisis. You know, resting is important. Deprogramming, processing the job that you've just been on and what you went through, that's important. That's why we do it. That's why we rest. That's why we sleep at night, because we need to deprocess and come at it again. If we work, we burn out. But Leonie, you and I, we go back so long that you've been through all of this and you've learned all of these lessons from me. But I remember our first meeting. Leonie was determined she was going to be musical theatre. And I remember towards the end of our time, Leonie was like, don't send me for any more dance calls. I can't do them. What are you doing, you crazy, crazy person? I was like, but that's what you wanted. And she's like, not anymore. We all grow, we change, we adapt, and what we want changes and adapts. And I put this on Twitter the other day. There's this mantra in this industry of never give up on your dreams. That doesn't mean pursuing something that is no longer working for you. That means never giving up on yourself, never giving up on understanding that your dreams change and you develop as you grow, as you have children, as you move house, as you move countries, as physically your body changes. My God, if I had to go and, I spent my life singing. If I had to go into a singing audition tomorrow, you just don't, because I don't care about it anymore. So I don't work on it. Accept and embrace the change, because it's beautiful. And Apollo, when you get there and when you exhale and when you realize that there's nowhere to run to, it's just so lovely. Look how fresh Leonie looks. She did not look like this when we started working together at all. But even physically, you didn't, did you? Leonie, you were very much sort of trying to look like what you thought the industry wanted you to look like.
That's true. Yeah, and then I cut my hair and I was like, oh, this is me. Oh, right, okay, gotcha.
But do you remember the trauma of it? It was like, I'm thinking of cutting my hair, and it's like, I'm thinking of doing this, and actually I feel like I'm a punk in like this sort of body of a Sophie from Mamma Mia. And I was like, then just be a punk, just cut the hair. And girls,
get a nose piercing.
Girls would always say, but if I cut my hair, I can't do period work. And it's like, they have wigs. And actually, it wasn't the hair cutting that did it for you, but it was that this is who I am and this is what I'm going to be, and everything else has to fit into that. And it was at that point that you started working consistently. I remember it. And it was wonderful to watch. It was wonderful to watch you go through that trauma of going into a Wicked audition year after year after year, and then to suddenly just go, oh, sod it, and grow into who you are supposed to be. It was beautiful.
Well, thank you for that. Great, it's all on the recording. Everybody will. Story of how Leonie found her own. Great.
Are we still doing that these days?
Apparently, I'm down with the kids. I'm 34 in a month. Okay, well, thank you so much again. I'm going to stop the recording now.